So far in 2025, we've seen several high-profile former WWE superstars return to World Wrestling Entertainment. Names like Aleister Black, Rusev, and AJ Lee, among others, have all made their returns to World Wrestling Entertainment. In this countdown video, we're going to let you know 5 possible ex-WWE superstars that could be set for a high-profile return to WWE. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of stories to get into in the world of professional wrestling. And let's talk about ex-WWE superstars that could be set for a homecoming in World Wrestling Entertainment. As I mentioned in the intro of this countdown video, so far in 2025, we've seen several former WWE superstars return to the company that arguably made them famous. Names like Rusev back on Monday Night Raw, Aleister Black back on Friday Night SmackDown. Both those stars came over from AEW, but also names like AJ Lee, who hadn't stepped foot inside of a WWE ring in over a decade, is now back in World Wrestling Entertainment. But could we see several other high-profile names make their return to WWE in the near future? Let's get into 5 ex-stars that could be set for a return to WWE, beginning with former WWE Divas Champion Paige. Now, also known as Saraya, she has a very interesting history when it comes to professional wrestling, of course. Let's begin talking about her exit from WWE. Of course, Paige is best known for her time in World Wrestling Entertainment, being one of the pillars of the women's evolution/revolution in WWE, coming up to the main roster, defeating the aforementioned AJ Lee in her debut match to win the Divas Championship right after WrestleMania 30. She had a very explosive and sometimes controversial WWE career. Now, that came to an end in terms of an in-ring capacity at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, following a series of neck injuries. She'd just come back from timeout due to neck surgery. And after an in-ring accident, she was forced to retire from in-ring competition. Now, she stayed with WWE for actually 4 more years after that. But on June 10th, 2022, Paige announced her departure from WWE, effective on 7th of July when her contract would expire. Now, that was just before Triple H got creative control of WWE. And it was at a time that a lot of people were leaving the company. There was disillusion over the creative direction under Vince McMahon. AEW was growing and seemed like a viable alternative for unhappy wrestlers to go and have some creative freedom. But, of course, the whole Vince McMahon scandal happened. Triple H got creative control of the company. And reportedly, at the time, he did reach out to Paige and said, "We'd like to bring you back, and whilst bringing you back, we'd also like to see if you can get cleared regarding your neck injury." Paige ultimately decided to turn down that offer, signed with AEW instead, did get medically cleared, and then wrestled for the company for about 3 years. The high point being winning the AEW Women's World Championship at AEW All In at Wembley Stadium in front of her family. But really, aside from that, she didn't really do all that much. The matches were underwhelming, and a lot of people felt like, Saraya just didn't really fit in All Elite Wrestling, something that seemingly Saraya also agreed with. Because in November of last year, Saraya announced she'd be taking a hiatus from wrestling to focus on other projects. In March of this year, she announced her departure from AEW, ending her near 3-year tenure with the promotion. And ever since then, despite her saying she wants to take time off to focus on other projects outside of pro wrestling, she has stated in more recent weeks that she has heavily considered returning to WWE and does want to return home. She stated that she's in full health after a past neck injury forced her to retire from in-ring competition in WWE. She says that she loves WWE, she considers them her home, and has expressed a desire to return if there's an exciting opportunity as well. She also spoke about AJ Lee's recent return to WWE and said that she would consider a similar opportunity, said she's been inspired by AJ Lee's return. So it does feel like, considering, really the options, there aren't many female talents out there that haven't at some point returned to WWE. AJ Lee was really one of sort of the white whales when it comes to one of the last big returns, certainly of people that haven't come back to WWE in general, but particularly in the women's division. And it feels like Saraya's another person that it would be a big deal if indeed she came back. And it's just inevitable at this point. I don't really think there's much desire for a Saraya return to All Elite Wrestling, but a Paige return to WWE, you feel like it is going to happen eventually. And before we move on to the next name in the countdown list, a reminder, this video is brought to you in collaboration with all of our great affiliates. That includes right there, NordVPN. There is so much confusion and so much worry at the moment regarding all of the different streaming services you've got to be subscribed to watch pro wrestling content, particularly WWE if you're in the United States. Of course, you need USA Network to watch SmackDown. You need the CW to watch NXT. You need Netflix to watch Raw. You need ESPN to watch main roster PLEs. You need Peacock to watch NXT PLEs and Saturday night's main event. Well, what if I told you you could watch all of your WWE content with one Netflix subscription? You can. All you need to do is get a VPN. You can use our link right there. Scan the QR code, click the link in the video description, or it's going to be pinned in the comments section. You can change your location to an international territory like here in the UK, and you can watch Raw, SmackDown, NXT, main roster PLEs, NXT PLEs. You can watch Saturday night's main event for free on YouTube. You can watch archive content on Netflix as well. All you've got to do is change your location via NordVPN. You can save yourself some money. You can also get your WWE viewing experience in one place, and you can support the channel in the process. Your support is really much appreciated. Let's move on and talk about a possible return to WWE for the Big Show, Paul White. Now, Paul White, his tenure with All Elite Wrestling hasn't been really one to write that much home about, has it? Now, when he left WWE in 2021, this was a massive surprise. The Big Show had been with WWE on and off since he made his debut back in 1999, jumping over from WCW, and he was really considered a WWE for lifer, many people thought anyway, with Vince McMahon being very protective of the Giant, and he was really the heir apparent to Andre in WWE. But he had grown disillusioned with the company. He felt that he had more to offer. He wasn't happy being put with just the legends and being put out to pasture, and he decided he was going to go to AEW. He was going to wrestle select matches. He was announced to be a commentator for Dark Elevation. He'd also be a talent scout there and a mentor behind the scenes. But in AEW, he's really not done all that much. Why? Because of health issues. The same health issues that sidelined him towards the end of his run in WWE. The same health issues that WWE realized stopped him from being an active in-ring performer on a regular basis. Since coming in, Paul White's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 matches. That's it. 6 matches in 4 years for All Elite Wrestling. The last match he had for AEW was on the 15th of November edition of AEW Dynamite back in 2023. It was the Like a Dragon street fight, where the only bump he really took in the match was a body slam on the car, and even that was done in a special way to protect him because he was so badly out of shape health-wise. He could barely walk. He had to have a hip replacement surgery, knee replacement surgery. It just feels like his days as an active in-ring performer are over. So you could say, well, then why is he going to go back to WWE, Owen? Well, really for the same reason that other legends have gone to AEW and then gone back to WWE, because that's a Legends deal. You could see a situation whereby Mark Henry, of course, he left WWE around a similar time to Paul White, went over to AEW, was a commentator on AEW Rampage, was a coach, a talent scout behind the scenes, but eventually he left, he went back to WWE, and now he appears, in the crowd. His son's got an NIL deal. He'll probably do documentaries and things of that nature, but he's happy being in the fold, and obviously he does stuff with Busted Open Radio. You could see a similar situation there with Paul White if indeed he decided to go back to WWE. Of course, they've got that deal with Netflix. Paul White had a show. He had the Big Show on Netflix, a children's show. So you feel like Paul White, when he gets the opportunity, will probably go back to WWE and probably go back to being under a Legends deal. His days as an active in-ring performer are pretty much done. Furthermore, the long deal that he did sign, seemingly it was to wrestle as well, and that's just not really a thing now anymore, is it? So I feel like at some point, the Big Show, he's going to end back up in WWE. Next up, Matt Cardona. Matt Cardona, of course, was a really funny one, wasn't it? Because earlier this year, Kevin Owens kind of mocked the former WWE Intercontinental United States Champion, saying that for someone who was so happy being on the indies and so happy having left WWE, talks about coming back to WWE quite often. And it actually has now happened. Matt Cardona has started to appear once again on WWE programming. Now, of course, Cardona, formerly known as Zack Ryder, was with WWE for a very long time, specifically 15 years, from 2005 to 2020. But in 2020, he was released as part of the COVID-19 pandemic budget cuts, ending his tenure with the organization. And then he had this big career renaissance going on the indies, becoming the deathmatch king, becoming this hardcore wrestler, being someone that wasn't tied down to contracts, basically appeared in every single company you could possibly think of. He hasn't, signed a contract with any company or what have you ever since he left WWE. And he's very much, this person now. It's kind of the prototype for what to do when you get released by World Wrestling Entertainment. But because of his success on the indie scene, there's always been this, well, is he going to go back to WWE eventually? Now, he has technically returned to WWE recently as part of the WWE NXT versus TNA Invasion, now Showdown storyline. On the September 23rd edition of WWE NXT, Cardona, along with other wrestlers of the TNA roster, took part in a major storyline where they invaded NXT, brawled with various wrestlers on the NXT roster. He's probably going to be present at the WWE NXT versus TNA Wrestling Showdown TV special next Tuesday on the CW. And you feel like maybe now that he's back on WWE television, at least infrequently, it may open up the doors for him to make a full-time return to the company. Previously, he had spoken about how when he came back, he saw himself in a different place to where he was when he left. Of course, when he left WWE, was in a tag team with Brian Myers, but wasn't being used all that much. It'd be largely an enhancement talent, if anything. He had different pushes at different points, but the company have never really got behind him. And if anything, his popularity or his getting over with the audience online, if anything, had resentment against him backstage in WWE because of how bizarre backstage politics are. But even with his success on the indies, is Matt Cardona going to come back and be semi-main event in WWE on the main roster? Probably not. Could he come back to NXT and maybe win the NXT championship and maybe go from there? I guess that's certainly a possibility. So maybe that would happen. One thing's for certain, if WWE did decide to make Matt Cardona an offer, he could go immediately. The positive thing about him is he's not under contract. He's never been under contract to anyone. So because of that, he could go back to WWE immediately if indeed they made him an offer. We'll have to wait and see if that happens. But given the fact he started to appear back on WWE television now, it feels like he could be one of the names that could be next in line to make a return to World Wrestling Entertainment this year. Next up, the Hardy Boys. This is kind of a similar in keeping, I suppose, with this TNA crossover. The Hardys, we know they're winding down as a tag team in professional wrestling. We know that's the case. We know they've only got maybe a couple of years left as a tag team, and they've been very open with the fact they want to end their careers back where it all started in WWE. Now, they've been with TNA Wrestling for over a year now, about 18 months or so, and it was actually a really needed time for both of them. Matt and Jeff were both in All Elite Wrestling, and for a variety of different reasons, it didn't work out for either. Matt came in right at the beginning of the pandemic as Broken Matt Hardy, and it just never really worked out the way that I think he thought it was going to. Jeff came in a little bit later after he left WWE, but he was dealing with substance abuse issues, addiction issues, personal issues. They were scheduled to win the AEW World Tag Team Championships in a ladder match. Then Jeff Hardy gets arrested. The match goes in a different direction. Jeff's off TV for a while. He comes back, but justifiably so. There was never really the trust in Jeff Hardy once again, and they both eventually left, and they both found their way to TNA. Now, since going to TNA, they've both done really good work. Jeff has proved himself to be once again reliable. And as I've said, they've been doing some of their better work in recent years. But it's always felt like they're trying to get back to WWE. Now, while still contracted to TNA, the Hardy Boys did make a return appearance with WWE during the February 25th, 2025 episode of NXT. Then NXT Roadblock, they successfully defended their TNA World Tag Team Championships against then NXT Tag Team Champions Nathan Frazer and Axiom. They're actually scheduled to face off against Dark State on this coming week's episode of NXT, that aforementioned NXT versus TNA Showdown. It's going to be title for title. So the Hardys are putting up the TNA World Tag Team Championships on the line against Dark State's NXT Tag Team titles. And there is a bit of a general thing that probably the Hardy Boys are going to win that match. So the Hardy Boys could hold a set of tag titles they've never held before, a WWE set of tag team championships, and a bit like Matt Cardona, that could open the door for a full-time return. In terms of their contractual status, they are under contracts with TNA Wrestling. Now, they officially signed one-year TNA contracts around sort of November time of last year. They were one-year deals. They moved from an initial handshake deal to formal agreement through November of this year. And the kind of feeling is that once this contract is up with TNA, if they got an offer from WWE, they would probably go back, and again, it would probably be a 1-2 year deal, and then they would be done. So I think there's a real possibility we could see the Hardys back in WWE full-time by the end of the year, maybe early into next year, considering they're only under 1-year deals with TNA. And, of course, you've got this expanded WWE partnership with TNA. It feels like they're going to be names that end up going back to WWE. And finally, Chris Jericho. Yes, the first ever undisputed WWE champion. Could he be on his way back to WWE? Of course, critically also the first ever AEW World Champion. We know Chris Jericho's contract is coming up soon. Chris Jericho, he extended his AEW contract in late 2022. It is reportedly set to expire at the end of December this year. Now, when it comes to all of this, this is certainly very, very significant because he's been off AEW television for a long time. He dropped the Ring of Honor World Championship to Bandito at Dynasty. The subsequent episode of AEW Dynamite, he broke up the Learning Tree, and we haven't seen him since. In his absence, he's gone on tour with Fozzy, but that ended a long time ago. And it feels like Jericho's in that situation that several other AEW talents have found themselves in, whereby when they've only got a short amount of time left on their contracts, they're taken off AEW television until either they agree a new deal, or if they don't agree a new deal, they end up leaving, because AEW doesn't want to give TV time to people that aren't going to stick around. Jericho has been open about possibly returning to WWE. He said that he would be open to returning to that company, which is a stark contrast from a couple of years ago where he said that he felt like he had done everything that was needed to be done there and he could only get so far up the card and he couldn't do any more. But it looks like maybe the feeling has changed. Now, according to reports, people in WWE are talking about Jericho coming back. They reckon he could be back as quickly as the Royal Rumble in Saudi next year, which would be significant considering his last WWE match took place in Saudi in a Royal Rumble match at the Greatest Royal Rumble back in 2018. So there is this general feeling that Jericho's probably on the way out and he's probably going back to WWE. Which a lot of people are talking about saying, well, actually, that's probably not the worst thing in the world. Chris Jericho, it's not the same Chris Jericho that signed for AEW in 2019. Then Chris Jericho was coming off of a very successful run in WWE and New Japan Pro Wrestling. In addition to that, he had never wrestled anywhere else in North America. Since he'd signed with WWE back in 99. He was considered a WWE for lifer. He was a significant acquisition, a big one, a news headline making one. They put the AEW World Championship on. He was really instrumental in helping launch AEW and particularly AEW Dynamite on TNT. But that was 6 years ago. Jericho now, he's 54 years old. His best days as an in-ring talent are over. And his last gimmick in AEW was about this being this over-the-hill guy, the Jericho Vortex, the Learning Tree, and all the please retire chants. It just feels like his time is done in AEW. Maybe it's done in pro wrestling. And really, all that's left in Jericho could be one final run in WWE, a bit of a nostalgia run, and then maybe he decides to call it a day, or maybe he goes back to WWE and completely reinvents himself. Either way, Jericho's a master in reinvention and changing the scenery and going away and returning at the right time. Maybe now's the right time to return to WWE and leave AEW. So there you go, guys. There are 5 ex-WWE superstars that could be set for a return to WWE this year or early next year. What are your thoughts on that list? Which ones are more likely than others? Let me know your thoughts, your reactions, your opinions, your hot takes, as always, in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.